There's a spirit in the air. Thank you for singing that song. I'm excited to get to share about the spirit that we felt at the Iowa Annual Conference last weekend. Before I do that, thank you to Reverend Tom Sears, who preached here last Sunday. Very grateful for your offering of the good word of Jesus Christ. Thank you, Tom. Thank you so much. And also thank you to SPRC and those on that team that put together a really nice evening last night. I know there were several of you all involved. It was very meaningful, and I'm blessed. I would also suggest that we have a meal like that more often than when someone retires. Maybe some dancing. Maybe we could get Ian Montgomery to lead the dancing now that we know that that's a growing edge for him. It was a lot of fun, thank you. Well, last weekend, our annual conference began on Friday morning for the clergy. We had our annual clergy session, and it was called We Come, Remembering Who We Are. It was a time of farewell for some disaffiliating clergy from the United Methodist Church, and also a time of welcoming new clergy seeking to be commissioned and ordained in our denomination. It was a time of remembering, and Bishop Kenitha Bigum-Sai greeted us saying, "We come with all kinds of emotions," and that is true. Oh God, hold us, hold your church in the palm of your hand. I think nationally it is estimated that 84% of United Methodist congregations will remain United Methodist congregations. A smaller percentage are choosing to go in a different direction. But this gathering was for clergy who chose to disaffiliate from the congregation as part of our work that day. Before annual conference, Reverend Clint Tweetball wrote this reflection. He said, "For everything there is a season. After years of fighting, divisiveness, and anger, the United Methodist Church and St. Paul's are in the midst of a new season. In some ways, it feels like we've been wandering in the desert my entire life. Now we come to a decisive moment. Will the new season be one of lament and wishing we could go back to where we came from? Or will it be a time of moving into a new promised land? My prayer is that we'll embrace a season of growth, welcome, acceptance, and new life. So much is possible." Thank you, Clint. So much is possible. For me, the conference began with a quick walk through the exhibits. Before the general session began, it's a good way to open up our imaginations for ministry and mission. I saw wooden looms created to weave plastic shopping bags into purposeful mats or blankets. There were the organizations like the Methodist Federation for Social Action, people there to answer questions. There were the two laywomen who started a traveling mobile vacation Bible school ministry to travel to small churches and help offer support and a full vacation Bible school experience. And I believe the Oaklands were some of those that carried some donations from St. Paul's to the Midwest Mission and offered donations from you all. Our bishop's opening inaugural address on that Friday afternoon was remembering who we are, made in the image of God. And it began our time together in this arena. It was also an ice rink for hockey games in other seasons, but that's where we were. And she encouraged us to react to these challenges that are facing our church, not with anger or retribution, but with healing and reconciliation and love. And that it should begin within our communities and us. She said, "I have seen the ministry that you do, Iowa, the people you are. I have seen you. And this is what I know. I know that you are all made in the image of God and that you are good." She went on to say many things. She offered us a book called Unrelenting Grace, A United Methodist Way of Life, written by Bishop Ken Carter. We all received a copy. She'll be leading a conference-wide study about this Wesleyan understanding of grace this fall. She went on to say, and when it comes to our call to be a grace-filled church, amidst the divisions and disagreements of our time, this is what we must know. We must know that it doesn't matter who is right or thinks they are right. It only matters if we are loving. It doesn't matter who is right or thinks they are right. It only matters if we are welcoming. And it doesn't matter who is right or thinks they are right. It only matters that we see the image of God, the likeness of Christ in all people, and be Christ to all. Friends, to do this, any of this, she said, we're going to have to go deep spiritually. We must go a mile deep in the intentional formation of disciples of Jesus Christ who can meet the test of these times. Disciples who can deal with the complexities of these times. Disciples who can meet the divisions of these times. Are you ready for this, St. Paul's? For this kind of path forward? You are. You are. Bishop Kanitha recalled visiting the Matthew 25 ministries here in Cedar Rapids and how they have gone deep in their community building, providing affordable housing in depressed areas, urban gardens, combating blight by buying a liquor store and turning it into a grocery store. And certainly we cheered proudly for Clint and Pastor Jonathan, who happened to be the board chair at Matthew 25 during that last visioning for strengthening neighborhoods. Bishop said, let's bring focus and vitality to our ethnic churches, our historic African-American congregations, our Hispanic congregations, our Asian, our African churches, and let's start new congregations that can attract the growing diversity in this state. Thank you to Pastor Daniel for leading here our African National Services. Bishop showed a slide of the worship that she joined in a few weeks ago here. And also, I know there are some who are already dreaming right now of ways that St. Paul's can reach out into areas that may no longer be served by a nearby United Methodist Church. Ruth Balster reflected, I came home from this conference and I was glad I had agreed to go. This is a very positive event showing that while of course there are challenges, we as a church have already considered solutions. That God is with us as we go forward and we're looking ahead, not back. And of course, one has to comment on our new bishop. What a delight. She is both down to earth, fun-loving, and spiritual. We are so lucky to have her, and what fun the next few years will be. So a feeling of hope went home with me. And Kate Baroka wrote, in entering the conference hall at the Rexplex, an ice arena, on Saturday morning, the bishop was dressed as a hockey player, complete with a helmet and hockey stick, showing that along with being very qualified for her job and treating everyone with respect, she also has a wonderful sense of humor. It's always good to connect with friends from around the conference. It was a treat to be there in person to see Pastor Sherry honored as she neared retirement. Thank you, Kate. Saturday included, among many things, a memorial service for clergy and spouses who had died in the past year. And the bishop embodied her message with meaning, with movement, was full of grace, emotion, a powerful portrayal of grief, and then this uplifting promise of eternal hope. Reverend Dr. Bill Daylong, a retired elder who joined us this year, wrote, I had not attended annual conference in person since 2015, the year I retired. It was a joy to go to annual conference where I could be confident that we would not need to defend the sacred worth of anyone. It was a joy to see an annual conference conducted with every person respected as a beloved child of God, and it considered a special joy to attend a memorial service for some beloved colleagues and see our bishop share a message of comfort and hope where I experienced the message that in all those experiences that bend us low, that God sees us and loves us and comes alongside of us and touches us and stands us up so we can offer our praise and our service. I'm very happy that my friend Gary could hear a message from the bishop who is not afraid to enter into the sacred dance. And Gary, who was there, wrote 3 quick observations. I can elaborate more if you need to, so you talk to him if you want to hear more. Number 1, we seem to be set free, unstuck from problems of recent past. Number 2, more caring and less guarded. And number 3, more spiritual, led by a charismatic new bishop. On to Sunday. It was remembering who we are as God's called and sent people. The bishop preached the Great Commission text that Melanie just read for us, just proclaimed. Talked about, notice the word Galilee, notice the word doubt. This Galilee that the disciples were sent to, we have a place of our own Galilee in which we are called and we are sent. Jesus had told the disciples then and offers it to us now, even though some doubted. But remembering who we are, we still go. For God is always with us to the end of the age. Without the conviction that God's presence is with us, that's when we get troubled. Doubt can overcome us then. And there was an audible sigh when she spoke words to that message, an affirmation of, if we forget that God's with us, doubt certainly can overwhelm us. I could hear it in the voices and see it in the faces of the conference leaders on the podium. They have sought to lead us through incredibly difficult times in their role, and it's only with their assurance that God's presence is with them that they do anything of what they do. It's the only way. And so it is with great hope, even in our doubts, that we still go. For God is with us, and that's how we go. That's how we go. Jerry Oakland wrote, Annual Conference 2023 had a good, hopeful, and joy-filled spirit about it. I felt that we could proclaim without fear of being challenged that God loves all people, that the face of Christ may be recognized in each person, and that working towards inclusion is a noble, Christ-like call in our church's ministry. And it felt as if United Methodism in Iowa might again be a force for good. And Barb wrote, Annual Conference 2023 was a hope-filled time as we look to the future as United Methodist Church in Iowa, remembering who we are. We were reminded of our call to ministry, whether we're clergy or lay. There was a feeling of trust and community and celebration as we gathered under the joy-filled spirit of our new bishop, Kenitha, who introduced herself as our 5th Ebony bishop in Iowa. She joins a strong line of inspiring, encouraging, and courageous bishops who have guided us in justice-seeking ministry over the past several decades. Pastor Daniel reflected, indeed, everything has been done well in its time, just as it has been done in previous years. People were given time to ask questions that they had, and they were answered with kindness and love. Regarding the churches and servants who decided to leave our church, they said that we should not see them as our enemies, but let us hold on to the brotherhood, and I'll add sisterhood, and all genders, to pray for each other. In short, the people were there. They were full of joy, from retired pastors and those who will continue the work of the Lord. Everyone was very happy from the beginning to the end of the meeting. And Pastor Jonathan reflected, this was certainly a different year, a new bishop, several clergy withdrawing their membership from the annual conference. It was a smaller crowd with 84 churches recently disaffiliated in Iowa. And only the second year in this new venue, and the list could go on. And while I wish we had more time to name the hurts from the last several years, decades of strife, I appreciated Bishop Bingham Sy calling us to remember who we are by drawing us back to the central call of love of God and neighbor, as well as our mission in the world. We experienced meaningful worship and preaching, and there was a sense of joy that I haven't felt in those places for some time. Probably the most memorable statement was one of the last things Bishop Bingham Sy said before we adjourned on Sunday afternoon. It feels like we've turned a corner. Several of us at the table agreed. It does feel like we're entering a new stage of life together in our annual conference, and what is around that corner is yet to be seen. Melanie shared, I felt hope and joy, and I agreed with the bishop's view that we have turned a corner. It felt like a truly inclusive church filled with hope and joy. And Bishop Kenitha Bingham Sy is an inspired and fun leader, and she will be wonderful for the Iowa United Methodist Church. Aren't we curious about that corner? Aren't we curious about that corner? Amen? Since before my time of ministry with you all, it seems like that corner has always been out there. And I feel like the time that I've been privileged to walk with you, to hold that baton of leadership for a period of time, has been to hold that space in the history of this church, to walk towards that corner and allow you all to say we want to turn it. Being in this liminal space and time, we have had courageous conversations here, theological reflections, questions about human sexuality, marriage, ordination, and more. Everyone's sacred worth and identity made in the image of God. St. Paul says, yes, turn that corner, discovering who we are and leading the way, and welcome in all seeking to connect with a faith community who leads with justice and grace. I always trust that God's Spirit brings people together for different seasons, and somehow I've been appointed here for a while. And hopefully the gifts that I've been able to bring have been a blessing. Well, I've shared gifts of holding space and time for you all to collaborate and be together and to discern. Your next lead pastor is the one to take you farther around that corner and into what is ahead. And we are so blessed. We are so blessed. Friends, I want you to keep looking around the corner with your church leaders and with your pastors. Beginning in July 1, God indeed is going to continue to be with you all in that work. I'd like Pastor Daniel and Pastor Jonathan to come forward. I warned them I was going to call them up because this is actually our last Sunday for the three of us to lead worship together. Yeah. So, yeah, you can come on up here. Yeah. Let me see. I've got a piece of paper. I need to stick to my script. I think the three of us have made a pretty darn good team together. This is a unique place, a multicultural church, aren't we? And so I'm just grateful for the gifts that we've each been able to bring and be in dialogue together. We have had chances to celebrate together whenever we see God at work, God's Spirit in your lives, and stepping into ministry. It has truly been a joy to serve together. When I was at conference as part of the retirement service, one of the honors I had was to take a stole and present it to a new female clergy who was going to soon be ordained, and present that as a symbolic gesture of passing the mantle. You know how Elijah passed something to Elisha? And that was meaningful. I was able to whisper a blessing in her ear as she begins her time in ministry. And so it is a privilege to pass something along to you. These two people have had incredible leadership in their own ways, in their own areas of responsibility. While I've worked with arts ministry, African nationals, and lots of the administrative areas of the church and worship. These two folks have taken on the leadership in robust ways in the areas that they lead. Daniel, you have taught me about exuberant joy in worship. Wouldn't you agree? Just the joy. And I've learned so much about African culture, the similarities with the American culture, but also the differences. And you have brought wisdom to me. And I'm a better person for having shared pastor colleagues and time with you. Thank you, Pastor Daniel. I've learned hospitality and peace and joy from you. Yeah. And Jonathan is going to be your new lead pastor. And you are so blessed. You are so blessed. I had to write down the areas that he has led worship and welcome, hospitality, reaching out, mission work in the community, connecting with our city in many ways. You've led some new areas focusing on the care of the earth, our natural resources, and you're nurturing a new love and action team which lifts up justice work. You have brought to us the roundtable preaching team, which gathers us for conversation on our preaching scriptures. Last year, he organized a team that ended up doing over 100 listening visits and brought this stories back together, which felt like the Spirit led us into some new missional priorities, and you all have adopted those. He also keeps an eye on communications and technology. He responds to the needs of our staff and all of you quickly. He's a great listener with wisdom and a depth of vision, and he provides compassionate care. As someone who has closely witnessed my humanness in life, thank you. Thank you. You have offered me compassion, and you've challenged me in good ways. You've seen my doubts and my frustrations, and we've celebrated together too. And you have also made me a better person, so thank you. Thank you. Now, I do not have a new stole to present to either of you, but I do want to do something. How about a neck scarf from the Amana Woolen Mills as something close? As well as, I just have a little framed photo of what I took on my retreat time, and a note and a book about embracing the rhythms of work and rest. Make sure he gets some time off, a little Sabbath, a little rest. You all take care of these two because they work very hard. So this one has a D on it. This is Daniel's. I'm going to walk over here, and then I will get this one. Excuse me. I'll get this one for Pastor Jonathan. So I love you both.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.